This is Danny Gould with the Selling Silicon Valley Group, your real estate retirement experts here, with our very first inaugural, if you will, real estate retirement solutions interview, where we go out and we interview agents across the country who have successfully transitioned their book of business, whether it be a 10, 20, 30 plus year book of business, to an adopting agent, and how they go about doing that. Today's guest is a very special guest. Her name is Rene Contakos. She was an agent in Portland, Oregon, and she successfully transitioned her business to Nick Crowder, who is a friend of mine and also has mentored me through this process. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that he is the author of a book, a very important book called The Golden Handoff, which I highly recommend any of you who are watching this video and are considering either adopting an agent's book of business or transitioning your book of business to an adopting agent. Highly recommend that you read that book. But today, in today's interview, we're going to really hear Rene talk about her experience and how she went ahead and identified her adopting agent, and what her biggest fears and concerns were throughout the entire process, pre and during the process, and what the transition overall looked like from identifying all the way through the end. She has an interesting story. She actually came back into the business and then successfully transitioned it back off again a second time. So, and finally, a fourth bonus kind of topic that we talked about in this interview is why she actually turned down a cash offer from her adopting agent and instead opted for a referral payout strategy. Very interesting to see what her mentality is and why she went about doing it the way that she did. So without further ado, Rene Contakos. Hey everyone, this is Danny Gould with the Selling Silicon Valley Group, your real estate retirement experts here in Silicon Valley, joined today by Rene Contakos, a real estate agent out in Portland, Oregon. She's had her active real estate license now for 16 years, right, Rene? Yes. And she has successfully made the transition out of real estate, not once, but twice now, right, Rene? So this is your second time going through this. And we're really excited to have her here today to share her experience on how she made that transition happen and how she identified her adopting agent and words of advice and pieces of advice for any agents that are in her shoes right now that are looking to make that transition in the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years or so. So Rene, thank you so much for taking the time. I truly value your time. So thanks for joining us. And I'm looking forward to a great interview with you.
Great. Thank you. Good to be
Awesome.
here.
Sweet. So Rene, you're joining us right now from the Portland area. And I'm wondering, how long had you been selling the first time before you made the transition out of real estate?
I would say it was about 6 years, 6 to 7 years that I was selling real estate.
So you got your license in 2004, correct?
Right.
Cool. And the first time you rode that wave, and why don't you tell us about what made you decide to exit the first time? I think it's a great story.
Okay. So, again, I started real estate and I had, my son was 2 years old when I went into real estate. And I had been warned that it's difficult going into this business with young children. And I disregarded everyone's advice. And I said, I can do this. And I was coming out of an industry, I was doing nonprofit fundraising for years. So I thought it was very similar and I was going to be super successful. And it didn't matter that I had a young child. And it really was, I did have to give up being a mother, a very attentive mother, but I was lucky because my mom took care of my kids anyhow. So I was doing real estate really pretty successfully and working my butt off. And I got to a point, and then I didn't realize that I wasn't planning on having a second child, and I got pregnant and was expecting another child, and that even made it more difficult. And I worked through my pregnancy till the day before I went in for labor, and then I had a C-section. They told me not to drive for 4 weeks, and I went back into real estate the day after, 5 days after I had a C-section. So,
wow,
in the hospital with all my real estate on me, and I thought, everyone thought I was crazy, but at that time I was the main breadwinner, and I had to do it. So I kept working, and I was putting my daughter into preschool, and I dropped her off. And I realized that I spent a solid day with her and not working since she was born. And it kind of just hit me. And I sat in my car and I started crying. I was like, this isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be a mother who lost all this time. And I had been doing a lot of fundraising for nonprofits on this, just helping them out voluntarily, connected with a lot of groups. And that morning I went into my real estate office and I got a call from the stance company and said, Rene, we love you. We're trying to, we will have a position open for fundraising. We know we can't pay you what you need, but we want you to at least consider it. You can even do it part-time. So that's what I decided to do. To work part-time doing fundraising, which was impossible. So, and then I eventually got to the point where I had to do it full-time. And that's when I was like, I developed all these amazing relationships with all these people. And this is when Nick approached me about buying my business. And I turned him down the first time.
Wow.
So I don't know how much further you want me to go. Because I had to get there.
That actually kind of like leads me to my next topic or my next question. And for those of you that are maybe newer to my channel or haven't attended any of my webinars or live seminars, I talk about Nick almost every single time. Nick Crowder is the author of The Golden Handoff, phenomenal book, kind of detailing the specifics of how he has successfully helped agents like Rene transition from full-time agent to either delegator, right? So some sort of like intermediary advisor type position, or fully out of real estate. And it sounds like Nick was in your office, right, at some point. So how did you, my question is like, how did you identify your adopter? But you didn't really identify him, right? He identified you. So how did that like work out?
Okay, so I didn't tell you this whole little scenario. So he approached me in the very beginning when he knew I was going to go out, and I had been listening to Nick every day. He worked right next to me, and this was a time when real estate was really struggling. We were crashing, and a lot of agents were really suffering, and Nick was doing really well, and so that kind of. I think it irritated a lot of people because he's on the phone all like geared up and everything, and everybody else is crashing and not making any money. So I knew he was successful and doing really well. So at that point, he approached me and said, Rene, I want to buy your business. And he had never done this before. So I was like, Nick, no. I want to give my business to somebody who's struggling. So this was the crazy part. I was like, I want to give my business to somebody it could help. And you're already successful and you don't need it. So I don't want to give it to you. And no, and like he was very aggressive about it. I'm like, no. So my initial thing, oh my gosh, I hope this person never hears this, but was I gave it to somebody who was really kind of struggling my business because I thought I could help them. But guess what? What I realized in the end, the reason they're struggling is because they weren't working their business like they needed to. And that actually didn't work for me because then he wasn't as aggressive as I wanted him to be with my clients, and I didn't really get anything from it. So I don't know how long it took me, maybe I want to say a year or 6 months after I realized this person was not going to work my business like I wanted him to, that I went to Nick and said, Nick, I want to reconsider what would it look like if I did hand you off the business now. So it was a little bit sticky.
Wow.
I have to say that telling the other agent, I really didn't, he wasn't working, and then actually moving it to Nick.
So what were the qualities that you think made Nick the right person to hand your business off to, right? What were the distinct differences in qualities, either in terms of marketing or people sales skills, right? Like where was that? Like where was the difference there?
I mean, Nick's a powerhouse. I mean, I know how he works. He comes in, he does the calls, he does the coaching, he does everything he's aggressive. He expects a lot from his team. He expects a lot from himself. He works your list. I mean, he takes your list and he'll run down it and make all those calls personally. So I saw that. And I realized that my thinking was wrong. Like, I actually want to hand my business up to somebody successful who's going to work it and be really aggressive, not to help somebody. And that is the switch I had. So when I realized in my head that that's what people thought I was people even question why I was doing that. Nick's already so successful. Why would you want to help him make him more successful? Well, I actually want to make some money from my clients and actually do well. And he didn't necessarily work his business like I worked it. I'm so much very relationship and not, like take my, really get to know everybody. And it's all about relationships. And he worked it, a little bit differently. But I realized if I wanted to get results out of my book of business, I needed to go with somebody who was successful. And I knew that he was, because I saw how he worked every day. He's a machine. He's amazing, and his work ethic is incredible. So that's the decision. So we made a decision. We sat down, we met several times, we talked about it. And then it was, pretty grueling going through my lists and then me being part of it in the beginning, because I wanted to be the person who kind of talked to all my people, handed them off. And we, did this whole tier thing, so yeah. So that's, I think I answered your questions. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And I think that's something that's often overlooked, honestly, by most agents. Well, the agents that actually take the time to transition their book of business, I would argue that the majority of real estate agents never even get to that point, right?
Yeah.
But for those that do, it's they give it to a friend, right, or someone that's close to them, not necessarily someone who like you hinted at is aggressive, right? Like goes out there, makes the calls, or at least finds ways of systematically, methodically staying in touch with your clients, and not just staying in touch, but bringing them value, right? Because I think that's a huge part of it.
I think a lot of agents, they'll say they'll take your clients, but their clients are going to have priorities. So your book is always going to be bumped out, until they have a lag time and they can call them. And I think that's what I, realized with most people, where Nick, he made it a priority and put it into his whole system, my people, and, and cranked it out.
Absolutely. So the first time that you handed it off, then that was probably like around 2010, sounds like, probably around then?
Yes, I think it was. I don't even
We'll
know.
go with that.
2009, 2010. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that first 6 years or so, how many years, so it's 6 years of work, how many clients did you pass off? And then how big do you estimate your database was at that time that you handed off to them?
I handed it. I want to say.
I know this is a question that I didn't give you, but it's just
200, maybe 150 to 200 people.
Clients that you handed off.
And prospects that I was
Got it.
that I had worked with. So yeah, I think it was around that.
That's pretty sizable. That's pretty sizable for 6 years of work, right? So
I know. It was good.
Yeah, I'm sure that in giving that much to someone, there was some fears there too, right? So and you unsuccessfully did it once. So what was your biggest fear going into it the first time, and how did you overcome those, and what lessons did you learn from that first experience?
With the original agent or with Nick?
With both, right? Like, what was your original fear going into the first transaction?
Okay, so I guess my biggest fear was that I had a certain way of dealing with my clients, and I had a great rapport with them, and that Nick wouldn't. Well, the first agent, it was very casual how we did it. So we really formalized it. I formalized it with Nick. So going in with Nick, I was just worried that that he wasn't gonna give them the same service as me, and they would be pissed at me for referring him, And then I would, people would blame me for giving them a crappy agent, or somebody that didn't take care of them like I did. So that was my biggest fear, right? That he wasn't going to take care of them the same way I did. I think that's every agent's fear, right? That because you're handing over all these personal relationships that you took years to build. And I mean, these relationships that I had before real estate, a lot of them were people that were, donors to the organizations that I did fundraising for, and so I've known these people a long time, and I still have relationships with them, and I don't want them to be pissed at me for giving them somebody who wasn't going to take care of them. So that was my biggest fear.
I absolutely get that. And that's more often or not the biggest fear that I see in general, right? From most agents is it's not the money. They actually, that rarely is the case. For most agents that I speak to that come to these events, that have come to my events, their main concern is making sure that they give their clients to someone who's going to take care of them in this, in the same capacity that they did. And that's super powerful because, when you think about it, like, and you're transitioning your book of business, if you take the time to select a proper suitor, like that, the fact that it's not, the money, but that it's the client, I think that speaks volumes to the types of people that are in this industry and succeed to begin with, right? Because it takes a certain level of agent. Right. Absolutely.
Relationship goes a lot further than one transaction or two transactions,
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you're saying, these are relationships that a lot of them you had outside of real estate, like before you even got into the business. Right. So it makes it even that much more important, to make sure that you're picking the right person. But it sounds like contrasting styles is also something that that's something that's come up too. And so finding someone who you think is going to mesh well with your clients is definitely true. The one thing that I've kind of like learned in all of this as well is, when you're looking at the overall demographic of like who's moving into the area and what's going on, at least in Silicon Valley, what I tell a lot of the agents that I'm talking to is, I might be 20 to 30 years younger than the majority of the clients that you're working with. However, don't think about just those clients. Think about their kids, right? Their grandkids, who's going to be able to help them. And not only that, but what's the average home buyer look like in this market as well, right? And how are your clients going to be properly serviced and helped aided through the process by someone who doesn't understand the mentality of the average home buyer in the marketplace as well.
Yeah.
Right. So those are kinds of some of the things that I think about too. How long did that full transition take? So I know 6 months maybe didn't go so well with the first agent. Then once you started the conversation with Nick to the time that, everything was in his database, we'll say, and being worked by him, how long did that take?
Not that long. We actually went through the list. We had a plan, went through each person on the list, made notes of ones that I felt like I had to handhold a little more before handing off, ones that I felt like I needed a personal call, ones that just needed a letter. He was going to send a letter from me introducing him, but like we went through if there were special things, special hand holding on for the notes. So then we made he keeps people on task. So he kept me on task. So we did stage 1, stage 2 of the calls, did some calls together. This was definitely before Zoom calls. So, we did calls together and sent notes. I made personal calls. So I'd say, within 3 months, it was handed off. And then when people came up that called me and wanted me to be a little bit more on the front end, I would step in, but not that much. Nick's like, Rene, I don't really need you involved at all. Like, it's in my hands. Sometimes that didn't always work. Like sometimes I really did have to be pulled into it, but for the most part, I would just know when I got a referral check, so that it even happened, because I felt really confident with all his knowledge and everything. So so probably like 3 months, but there was some lingering stuff that still needed my attention. If something came up and somebody called me and they wanted me to kind of just be a little bit involved, I would. But for the most part, Nick just took it and ran hard.
Nice. And so when you say referral check, I know for the viewers back at home, the payout structure was like a 3-year structure, right? What he kind of talks about in the golden handoff, where it's a descending scale, like 30, 20, 10, year 1, year 2, year 3. Was there any cash given up front for the business? How did that work?
No, we did not. Originally, we thought about doing that. He was just going to pay. Originally, he was just going to give me cash for my business, and I'm like, no, I don't like that idea. So we, So this is the way.
Why is that?
Because I just felt like if I give him cash for my clients, it's like then he owns them, and then again, so I can talk. I went back in the business, took my clients back from him, and then now I'm out again and handed them back to him. So I don't know. It just didn't feel right, and it's hard to put a number on it. So I just felt we just came up with this idea instead.
Okay. Well, and actually, I want to get to that second, the resurrection, right, of Rene. But then, it sounds like the main reason you didn't want to give away your business, like cash for business or cash for databases, because you wanted to kind of like continue the system of checks and balances, right? Like you
Yeah,
wanted to make sure that your clients were being taken care of and
exactly.
that he didn't own them, right?
Exactly.
Hmm. Right. And would you recommend that to agents that are in your position?
Depends. I mean, I think if people are totally done and they know they're never going back into real estate and they just want to be done with it, or they're I don't know, but I've been dabbling, like I've gone back and forth. So like, I guess I wasn't there in my head that I was totally done with, and I still wanted a little involvement. I thought it would be beneficial for all of us if I still could help, people felt like they could still call me and I could still get referrals. And yeah, no. So yeah, I would in my situation, yes, but everyone has their own situation. If
Okay.
they're moving, they're done, they don't even want to deal with any of their clients anymore and they just want to get some little bit of cash. Okay, that's good. But and then, but I knew that that's not what I wanted.
Sure. Okay. So again, it depends, right? Like that
Right.
sounds like that's
It's all individualized.
how did you get back into real estate? I'm sure this is a good story.
Okay. Yes, I'm telling my whole personal life here. So I um went out of real estate, worked for fundraising, and then I don't even know how many years. Okay, I don't know how many years it is. So until like 3 years ago, went through, started doing fundraising for several nonprofits. Felt like I was burned out, going through a divorce. Um, had some been hurt by a few jobs, and felt like, you know what, I'm really good at real estate. I'm just going to go back into real estate, get my license. And at that point, I had met somebody else. I got divorced and met another partner, and he's like, just do it. You're burned out from fundraising right now. Go back into real estate. You're really good. Market's good right now. So I went back. A bunch of people that I had worked with at my last company started their own company. They said, come back to us. We would love to have you, Rene. You're amazing. I went. It was like old family. It felt really good. I started up my whole business again. And then I get married for a second time. And we have to pay a huge college tuition bill. And my daughter needs to go to private school. So now we have these huge bills, even though my new husband makes decent money. But so I'm like, and again, real estate just doesn't give you that steady, how much money you're going to get every month. And I got pulled to go back into fundraising for the arts, which I love. And they said, just come in for how many hours ever you want. And then here I am back in it again. Like I got pulled into it again, and I realized I love it. I got re-energized by doing fundraising for the arts. And so I'm like, okay. After I said to Nick, I'm taking back my business, which he wasn't thrilled by, but he had to, relent. And then, okay, you can have it again.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I guess that's gracious of him, right? But at the same time,
That's
it's
the
like,
thing about selling it. If you sell it, it's different than this whole,
yeah,
I'm like, they're my people. I mean, yeah, you can still work them too, but I'm going to work them, and, they know me. And so we can,
right.
whatever.
Right. I mean, that makes total sense. And obviously, like anyone in that position would be hard pressed to say no to that, right? I guess my question for you is, coming back into it a second time and then transitioning it back to Nick the second time. Were there any mistakes that you made the first time, aside from that first mistake, right? Were there any mistakes that you were able to avoid now the second time that maybe you made the first time around?
Not really. I mean, it was kind of easy. He already had on my list. We just went over it a second time. We refreshed it with some new people. I knew what he was going to do. It was just kind of easy. It was just like, here you go, Nick, just take it again. I mean, we didn't really, I don't know if we did. Our negotiation was similar. We were just straightforward with each other. We're both pretty much business people. Like, there was a little bit of negotiation, a little bit, but it was like, I can't even remember. I negotiated a couple things, and that was it. I mean, and then we had a few people that I had to call, and and now we're where we are now, and that was not very long ago. So I haven't really gotten anything from it yet because this whole, Yeah.
Very
Well,
recent.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
then, yeah, of course. Yeah.
so again, yeah. So there you go. So that's where I am.
Very cool. So it sounds like you came back for 3 years or so, right? Back into,
I not even maybe not even that. Yeah, 2 or 3, maybe 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Yeah, it's
so you
been like
added maybe what, another 50, 100 names to the list, something like that.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
kind of took some people off, added some people, went through the new list. We combined lists. He had some old people. I put them back on. We kind of coordinated the whole thing. We had a plan again for each person. I did some calls. I had some hot leads that I thought were hot, and that kind of thing. And then he's back to it again. So there you go.
Very cool. Any plans to come back, make it a trilogy?
You know what? I will never say never. That is one thing you should never do, because you don't know what life's going to throw you. And, I feel lucky that I kind of have it as a backup. I don't plan on ever going back into real estate. And I was just thinking about it this week. I don't have a desire, but you never know. It's a safety net, and it's kind of a good skill and a good thing to have. So I just kind of, it's all about timing and your life timing and what what, if for me, it's like, if I needed it to totally depend on for an income, it's really tough and a lot of stress. And I don't want all that stress. I'm in my
Right.
50s. We have, between us, I have 4 kids from the age of 12 to 26. So, one's in college. I have 10 more years of college education to get through. So, you know, so I need a steady income to pay all the money for their educations. There you go.
Hey, I get it. I get it. Well, it's interesting, right? Like I think people in that watch this video, right? There's a variety of different agents that would benefit from something like this, right? And I think more than anything, it can open people's eyes up. Like maybe life's pulling you in a different direction right now, right? Maybe you need a 3, 5, 7 year hiatus right before coming back in. Someone like yourself, right? You had your second kid, and your bandwidth was just so limited that you were like, hey, I can't do everything. I can't do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that there's a lot of people in your position that probably just kind of don't do anything, right? But they don't have anyone actively work their database either. And so they're missing out on not just, having their clients taken care of, but having their having that income stream, right? Which I'm sure helped.
It helped a lot. I mean, the first few years I got quite a bit of money, and it was really helpful. It's the supplemental income, and I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was refer. So it felt so good to get those checks. So it really, it helped me get through a lot of difficult time that I couldn't put it into real estate, but I had somebody working it and I could get extra income. So that was great. This time around, I don't have as many expectations, but it would be great to get, it would be good, and it would be fantastic to have those extra checks and you're not even having to work it. So it's great. But one thing I would address for someone like me is what happens if they do want to come back in the business and want their clients back, and you
Right.
guys should put that on the table and talk about that, because
Absolutely.
that can be really sticky, and you want to make sure that you address it up front, what the protocol would be for that.
Yeah, and if there are agents who are watching this outside of my immediate marketplace, my suggestion would be make sure that you put everything in writing, right? Like
Yeah.
everything should be in writing, right?
And that was not in writing because we didn't anticipate that happening.
Uh-oh. Well, hey, what can I say? He's a good guy.
Yeah. Well, he had no choice.
Yeah.
He wasn't thrilled. Believe
You
me.
don't strike me as the person that gives people a choice. So that's
Oh.
good. What kind of advice would you give, Rene, to agents maybe that were your position, more of like a delegator, consultant, or advisory type role, or someone who's just looking to completely transition out of the business? They've been working it for 30 plus years. What advice would you give to those people?
I think it's a great idea on both sides. I think it's a great idea for young agents like you, to be able to have the skills and the infrastructure to be able to take clients from, be able to do this handoff. I think it's fantastic, and it's great for the agent that's handing it off, because like I said, you're going to get income for really not doing much, but you really want to be very careful on who you choose to take your business, because again, the most important thing for me, we talked earlier, is not the money, it's the relationships. And I did not want to hand my business off to somebody who was not going to do a good job. And then they're pissed, the person's pissed at me. And these are people that were, a lot of them were personal friends. So I think you have to be really careful who you hand it off to, make sure that they're going to, and that's why I wanted a little bit of a hand in it. But it's a fantastic opportunity for both sides. And I think you guys are really smart for seeing this little niche. And and I feel like it would be, we built, we spent all these years building up this business. Why would we not treat it like any other business and get some residual income from it after we get out of the business? So if you can find the right person, I think it's a great idea. And I think everyone should consider it when they're getting out of the business.
That leads me to like my final thing here that I'm thinking about. When you say, when you find the right person, I know that we've like talked about it, but like, what do you mean? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think you have to find somebody who you feel has the same ethics, who has the same, who's going to deal with your clients and make them a priority. Because that's another thing. When I originally wanted to hand it off, I would try to pick somebody who was struggling and I wanted to help them. But there's a reason why their business wasn't successful in the first place. And that's not the right reasons. You don't want it. So you really want to pick somebody who is successful and doing well in real estate. And that's a great sign. And is going to work your business and, and prioritize it the same way that they would all their other clients. So, and you have to actually dig deep. I was trying to do I guess kind of a charity, kind of my nonprofit background, trying to help somebody. But I think that's kind of the wrong outlook. And I realized that the hard way. And you really want to just find somebody who is successful and has a plan in place, and then has the same values you do with working with clients. So maybe talk to some of their other clients, and then work together in the beginning to make sure it's done smoothly.
Awesome. Any final thoughts for us, Rene?
No, I think you guys are good for you, and I hope that you can entice other agents to do what I did, and I think it's a smart thing to do. So good luck with what you're doing, and yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, and definitely, I definitely appreciate your time and providing some insights on your situation. I think what I learned, what I've learned over the last 2 years since I've been working on this is that you have like these archetypes of agents, but everyone's situation is unique. Mm-hmm. Right? Like everyone has like little like nuances about their situation that makes them unique. And it's always interesting to hear someone's story like yourself. You come in, you go in, you go out, and then you're back in again. And that's pretty cool. Right. And there are different things in your life that led you to do that. So I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your insights, and thanks so much for joining us.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Rene. Thank you.